The start of the 20th century ushered in a world which was never to be the same again. Gears ground towards a global conflict, fueled by an unstable political climate and an indomitable spirit of nationalism. As tensions escalated and battle lines were drawn, the world became a boiling cauldron of aggression, with the stranglehold of imperialism and expansionism adding layers of complexity to the situation. Isolation was no longer an option, and a single spark could ignite a war that engulfed the globe. The principal players of this apocalyptic drama, often termed the Great War, were the Allied powers and the Central Powers. As war broke out in the summer of 1914, the brilliant minds behind these forces had no idea what lay ahead. They were at the cusp of an era of unprecedented technological progress and change, a crossroads where age-old military strategies would clash against the tempest of new sciences and weaponry. In this churn of uncertainty and tension, both sides were quick to enact their war strategies, attempting to capture and hold on to the advantage. The Central Powers, consisting of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire, aimed to execute a swift, decisive victory, a strategy aptly titled the Schlieffen Plan. It saw them surging through Belgium to flank the French forces from behind, theoretically ending the war quickly enough to prevent the mobilization of the vast Russian forces. The Allies, on the other hand, employed defensive strategies in the Western Front and relied on Russia to launch a counter-offensive on the Eastern Front. However, the war defied expectations, breaking out into brutal trench warfare, a face-off that persisted for 4 weary years. Both sides became locked in a deadly embrace that spanned from the English Channel to the Swiss border, marked by a series of valiant but costly battles. Among the tumult, the development of war technology and changes in usage of existing ones played a critical role. The concept of aerial reconnaissance, where aviators would gain intelligence by flying over enemy lines and photographing enemy movements, was revolutionized during World War I. The information captured was crucial for strategic planning and was a dangerous yet essential part of modern warfare. The naval blockade was another crucial strategy employed in World War I. In an attempt to starve out the opposition, the knife edge of war was also waged at sea. Nations attempted to cut off their enemies from essential resources like food, fuel, and munitions with blockades, leading to dire consequences for those on the receiving end. The bitter fighting in and around the Dardanelles, one of the most strategically important waterways in the world, marked the beginning of a new chapter in naval warfare, amphibious assault. The image of brave Anzac soldiers landing on the shores of Gallipoli or the might of the British Royal Fleet penetrating the Dardanelles Straits has been etched in the annals of naval strategy and sacrifices. The battleground was not simply marked by the tactical contra of soldiers in a deathly dance, it was shaped and molded by vast technological advancements. Both Allies and Central Powers armed themselves to the hilt with weaponry designed to kill more efficiently, further complicating the already complex scenario. Technology and strategies were evolving at breakneck speed. For example, tanks and their ever-evolving designs aimed to break the impasse of trench warfare, and poison gas was used as a tool of psychological warfare that would strike terror and disarray within enemy lines. As the war dragged on, a sense of desperation and innovation drove the development of new war tactics. One notable example of this was the use of shock troops whose main job was to infiltrate enemy lines, disrupt their formations and create chaos from within. This was achieved through lightning-fast assaults, grenade barrages, and the perpetual threat of dense, penetrating machine gun fire. Additionally, the role of propaganda was not to be underestimated in this struggle. Appearing in various forms including posters, films, speeches, and countless other mediums, it was used to inspire, entice and mobilize both troops and civilians, an essential part of the larger, socio-political war strategy. A particular instance of a significant strategic shift occurred at the Battle of the Marne. The German Schlieffen Plan, an audacious and agile maneuver to encircle the French and British armies, failed due to Allied countermoves, stiffening French resistance, brave Russian assaults, and most tellingly, the adaptation of the infamous Parisian taxicabs as emergency troop carriers. This marked the first of many instances where the war strategy deviated from textbook plans and adapted to the fluidity and uncertainties of war. As the war dragged on and the stalemate continued, the introduction of the United States into the conflict in 1917 was a strategic game-changer. With its ample industrial capacity and fresh troops injected into the war-weary Allies, it significantly tipped the balance of power. Its adoption of unrestricted submarine warfare added another dimension to the brutal struggle at sea. By April 1917, the U.S. had declared war against Germany, ending its policy of neutrality. The decision was heavily influenced by the infamous Zimmermann telegram, a cryptic message ostensibly sent by the German foreign minister to its ambassador in Mexico, proposing an alliance in case the U.S. were to enter the war, offering financial support and encouraging Mexico to invade the neighboring U.S. However, before the Mexican government could act on it, the telegram was leaked and published in an American newspaper, further inciting pro-war sentiments. As the war escalated, it was clear that the swift, decisive victory both sides had hoped for was a mere illusion. Instead, they were locked in a stalemate, a grueling war of attrition that required them to devise new strategies on the fly. First envisioned as a quick summer war, World War I dragged on for 4 long years, causing unprecedented upheaval and leading to the deaths of over 16 million people. The armistice of 1918 and the resulting Treaty of Versailles marked the end of the war. But the tremors of World War I continued to reverberate in history, politics and society. From the rise of totalitarian regimes in Europe to the Russian Revolution, from trench warfare to the rise of aerial and amphibious assaults, from the first use of chemical weapons in the modern era to the role and rights of women in society, the legacy of the First World War redefined the economic, political and social landscape of the 20th century. Moreover, World War I emerged as a testing ground for the future military strategy, prefiguring the dynamics and intricacies of wars to come. It revealed the importance of technology and resource mobilization, the need for thorough intelligence and air superiority. The nuances of naval blockades, the intricacies of trench warfare, the significance of propaganda, all were lessons that military strategists and historians alike would carefully dissect and study in the wake of the most cataclysmic event in human history. The outbreak of World War II, barely 2 decades later, stood testament to that. The rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, the volatile political climate of 1930s Europe, the similarities and contrasts in the strategies of Axis and Allied powers, all disparate elements that finally translated into the hellfire of conflict. And even after the dust settled on the Second World War, the cycle of conflict did not abate. From the Korean War to the Vietnam War, from the Cold War to the catastrophic dimensions of the nuclear arms race, the world was not to enjoy peace for a prolonged period of time. It is astonishing to see the speed of advancement in warfare strategies and technologies in just a span of decades. At the same time, it is a testament to human ambition and resourcefulness. While there were immense human costs, out of warfare also arose the need for diplomacy and international relations that culminated into the formation of the United Nations in 1945. In conclusion, World War I profoundly affected the course of modern history, not only due to the military strategies and technologies that it engendered or accelerated but also due to the cultural and societal shifts it brought about. The Great War uncovered the true face of modern warfare, its devastating nature, and the unprecedented scale on which it could unfold, a somber lesson that societies would have to grapple with in the decades to come. 2 significant military strategies emerged from the ashes of World War I, the repercussions of which were keenly felt in the conflicts of the 20th century: total warfare, a strategy focused on the complete utilization of a nation's resources and population to achieve ultimate victory, in the concept of a war of attrition, where the winning side is not necessarily the one that achieves grand victories, but the one that manages to endure and maintain relative superiority in resources and troops. Looking back at the horrors and heroism, loss and lessons of the Great War, we are reminded of a poignant yet profound observation by one of the war's most celebrated poets, Wilfred Owen: "My subject is war and the pity of war. The poetry is in the pity." All a poet can do today is to warn. And indeed, much like how poets tried to grasp and articulate the unfathomable scale of human suffering and bravery, historians and researchers continue to search for answers, interpretations and insights into the complexities of war strategies, and more importantly, for ways to prevent similar conflicts and their devastating outcomes. Besides the military impact of World War I, the social, political, and economic ramifications of this historical event were equally profound. With the rise of revolutionary ideologies, the crystallization of national identities, the industrialization of warfare, and the disillusionment of a generation, no aspect of civilian life or society remained untouched. Particularly of importance is the role that women played during World War I. As millions of men left their homes to fight in distant lands, women stepped up to fill their roles in the labor force and on the home front. This marked the first time in countless societies that women had moved en masse into occupations previously the preserve of men. Post-war, the female suffrage movements, precipitated by women's newfound opportunities and born out of their invaluable contributions to the war effort, gained momentum. Consequently, a number of countries granted their women the right to vote by the end of World War I or shortly after. Versailles Treaty, the final peace settlement of World War I, led to the disbanding of several empires and the reshaping of various national borders. The Ottoman, Austro-Hungarian, German and Russian empires were cast away, and new states like Czechoslovakia, Poland, and Yugoslavia were born. The Arab territories of the Ottoman Empire were split between France and Britain, leading to the infamous Sykes-Picot Agreement, contributing to the deeply rooted resentments which shaped much of the modern Middle East. The economic impact of the war was similarly significant. The unprecedented scale and cost of the war necessitated governments to find new ways to fund their war efforts, ultimately resulting in an expansion of state power and the introduction of income taxation and other economic control measures. At the same time, the war led to unprecedented technological and scientific advancements as nations sought ways to gain the upper hand. For instance, the need for surgeons, particularly those skilled in treating severe battle wounds, led to advances in plastic surgery. And the increased reliance on technology, from aircraft to poison gas, led to a mechanization of war. In sum, the lessons of World War I, its strategies and sacrifices, have left an indelible mark on the history of international relations, reshaping our understanding of war, peace and the human condition. The war to end all wars proved to be just the beginning of a new era. It brought forth civilization's darkest hours, but also the beacon of humanity's resilience, transformation, and hope. The world, burdened by the catastrophic scale of the conflict and its tremendous human and material cost, sought to erect institutions like the League of Nations, 1919, the precursor to the United Nations, to facilitate diplomacy and prevent future wars. The combatants of World War I, the relentless bargainers of death and destruction, could not have predicted the extent to which their bravery and tragedy shaped the societal, political and economic narrative of the 20th century. Hence, in the endless pursuit to understand the practical repercussions of the Great War, the unique combination of military strategies and fronts, destruction and rebuilding, human loss and technological innovation serve as a stark reminder of the complex nature of conflict and the subsequent forge of reconstruction. During this period of reset and reconstruction after World War I, one can view with solemn consideration the words of George Santayana: "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." The world had looked into the precipice of destruction. The question beckoned was if they had learned the lessons necessary for survival. Narrator 35, the Treaty of Versailles, skewed with sentiments of revenge and retribution, imposed heavy reparations on Germany, ultimately contributing to the economic instability and unrest that culminated in the rise of Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany. Unfortunately, history witnessed a repetition of the catastrophe, as even with the memory of the previous World War's devastating consequences, a second global war broke out in 1939. Narrator 36, therefore, the tumultuous chapters of the First World War invariably led the global community to take a hard look at the foundations of the post-war international order. This quest for stability and order was further enunciated in the creation of the United Nations on October 24, 1945. Its aim, in the powerful words of the UN Charter, was to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person, in the equal rights of men and women, to promote peace and prevent future conflicts. Narrator 37, even as the Second World War tore the fabric of international peace and security with even greater intensity, the historiographical churn of the two global conflicts served as the foundation for several never-again resolutions, pivotal documents, and countless academic and policy papers aimed at decrying and dissecting conflicts of any type. From the Hague Conventions of the early 20th century to the international criminal trials post-Nuremberg, the world seemed determined to learn from the past and keep it from destroying the future. Narrator 38, beyond this, the war-stricken chapters were captured in a codified form, scripted in international laws, espoused by national regimes and human rights charters, glimmering birthmarks of the unparalleled experiences of the First Global Armageddon. For the war, encrusted with a cataclysmic mix of political, diplomatic, economic, social and cultural upheavals, called the global village to the tables of enduring peace and human rights. Narrator 39, sermons of history are often marinated in checkered lessons and bitter quandaries. As the world transitions through the tides of globalization, the echoes of war to end all wars serve as a profound medium of navigating the currents of destiny. The roots of peacemaking dig deeper when watered by the rivulets of fragmented pasts. Lessons are only learned when imprinted in the pages of history that urge each successive generation to unearth, understand, remember and reflect. Narrator 40, perhaps history, with its relentless narrative of repeated mistakes and fresh opportunities, could prompt humanity to recognize, rectify, and wreck the agonies of war with the nectar of peace. For as human beings, children of history and pilgrims of past epochs, we hold the scarred face of war, mask the pain of countless souls, touch the shaky shoulders of fading veterans, and witness the footprints of destruction that history paces with weary steps. Narrator 41, the end of a war marks the beginning of another chapter, one of healing, reflecting, rebuilding, a chapter in which strategies of peaceful coexistence are explored. From this diplomatic trapeze between warring hostilities and peace overtures arises another reminder, another lesson. A war not fought, a conflict resolved, a tense situation de-escalated, a peace treaty forged, a compromise reached. These victories of diplomacy and peace are, in their essence, triumphs of society over the mechanisms of war.